And I'd like to welcome Fire Chief Robert Cote to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a little while since we've seen one another. I'm just going to pull up your updated chart for our calls. Fire department in the last 2 years has been fairly active, and this year is no different. We're actually up 24% from last year's calls. So on the screen there, I've got this pie chart here. We've done 100 calls to date. We're looking at 35% of the calls are alarm calls. So it's responding to residents' homes, and whether it's a cooking incident, low batteries, maintenance, etc. We've had 35 calls. The majority from there, we go into our motor vehicle accidents in town, 17%. And mutual aid, 11%, where we are requested for help to assist Lacombe County Fire Departments, Red Deer County, and the city of Lacombe. So we've been quite busy. When it's quiet, it is quiet, and then all of a sudden we'll get slammed with 4 or 5 calls in a day. So the guys have been active, and this year we are back into doing our training, our 1001 NFPA level 1 training. We are started doing the hazmat training, which we are now into for Tuesday nights for the summer, basically. And going into September, we will be doing in-house pump training. So bringing our members, getting them all qualified to in-house training, not a NFPA level. Because part of that NFPA level training involves an aerial. We don't own an aerial, so we don't need that part of that training. So with the coming out of the restrictions from COVID, we're still being very cautious at the fire department as far as opening up the doors to the public. We are contemplating the open house on fire prevention, so October 2nd or 3rd, it's a Saturday. We're contemplating doing the open house, and that goes back to the status of what is going to happen during the summer with this new Delta variant. And we're just being cautious on that, but that we are planning on the open house for Fire Prevention Week. And by being cautious with the members being volunteers, we don't want to bring in the virus and then they lose their income from doing medical calls or motor vehicle accidents. So we've still taken in all the precautions when we respond on calls. So we're still wearing gloves, masks, sanitizing, defogging the trucks every time we go in and out of the firewall. We are also getting great use out of the quantity that's down at the old Public Works building, where with Public Works moving up to Ops building. And so that old quantity that was to the west, we've got our training aids, training props set up. So we have a 2-story, I'll call it a house simulation. So the guys can do search and rescue. We've got our forcible entry tools, where before we had that set up in the firewall. So for Wednesday night, we would have to set it up Wednesday during the day, and then Wednesday evening take it apart. So now it's all one permanent fixture, and Lacombe, City of Lacombe, we've been training their recruits in the facility as well. So it's joint training, and we send our members up there and they send theirs down here. So we are training within the county. And end of June, we ended up renting the training grounds in the city of Red Deer for live fire training. That's part of the 1001 practical and the practical exam. So we do utilize the region's resources as well. So, any questions? We're probably covered up pretty fast.
Thanks so much, Chief Cote. Does anybody have any questions? Mayor Poole?
One topic that has been coming up fairly regularly is the amount of support that fire departments are providing to EMS.
Yes.
So could you give council an idea of how many calls have actually been in response to and supportive of EMS?
This year we're up from last year. We've done 14 medical assists for our first responder program. The majority of our calls, we respond to Delta variants, and echo determinants, which are life-threatening. So echo is the most serious. You're not breathing, pretty much CPR is in progress now. So the majority of our calls this year have been the Delta and echoes, mostly echo variants.
Could you give me an idea of how many times that fire department has arrived before EMS has?
For EMS, I'm going to say probably 50%, 50 to 60% of the times. Recently, we're not really chasing the ambulances when we're arriving on scene. So we're Lacomb's coming in from the north or Red Deer's coming in. We're either just before them and we're actually working the patients. And we're usually on scene for 45 minutes before transport. So we spend a fair bit of time on scene with patients and families.
And do we get any remuneration from AHS for that call?
The only reimbursement that we get from AHS is any medical supplies that we use.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? My question is, sorry, for your presentation, is that just from January till the end of June?
No, that's right today,
Okay, so last,
as of Sunday morning.
okay, perfect.
So that's 100 calls. In regards to the medical call-outs, I've got all sorts of spreadsheets, guys. So that gives you year-over-year quick view up to the end of June for 2021. So 14 calls this year, 16 calls in 2020. 2020, the calls weren't as severe as they have been this year. So Alberta Health has changed their protocols for patient care on scene. So we're spending more time on scene before they actually transport the patient this year. The honorarium, I don't know if that's for standing committee or
The firefighters?
for financial reimbursement.
Probably better off for budget
Okay.
discussions.
I do have those numbers too, per call per year. I do also track all our calls from the time we dispatch, how much time we spend on scene, to how long the call is, what type of call it is, where we stood down, where we not stood down. So alarm calls were, I'll go back to the other pie chart, but so here, we got the date, the dispatch, the route, shoot. Out of shoot time is how fast to get out of the fire hall and then on scene, right? So we track all that, the day, the hour of the day, which is more common, which days are more frequent for to have accidents, right? Or incidents. And like Myron says, we can discuss that more in detail later. So back to this spreadsheet here, I've got all sorts of information, alarm type, hour a day, day a week, month, and how many manpower per call, right? So I can tell you Monday through Saturday. So right now, Friday is our most busiest day this year. Previous years, Wednesday nights, hands down, while we're on fire training, so.
Councilor Stanley?
Would it be possible to send this specific pie chart to all of council?
Yeah, usually at the end of the year, we send it out as a yearly summary, but yeah, it can be done.
I would appreciate it, thank you.
I was just going to maybe get Robert to mention where we are with the number of volunteers.
Yeah.
And also the capital purchase that you're working on.
Okay. Currently, our membership, we have room for 36 members. We usually hover around 30 for the most of the time, or the past 10 years, we'll say. It's been 30 members. This year, at this time, we're down to 26 members. I've lost 2 to do the economy, they've gone to other jobs in British Columbia. And the other two just moved on. So we will be putting out a ad towards the end of August to start a new recruitment process, so we can start the training come January. Because we're looking at 4 months of training just for recruits, as well as the regular members. So our training now is Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights. So Tuesday nights for recruits courses. The course I'm teaching now is a 1072 or the hazmat course. It would take up 3 weekends plus 1 weekend for exam. So to get compensated for that or move the guys around and scheduling, it's really a nightmare for their work schedules and shifts. So we're doing it on Tuesday nights, and then Wednesday night is our regular, the whole department training to keep up to the competencies. And the other project that I've been working on is the capital purchase to replace the town's frontline pumper. So that was due 2 years ago, and we've got the RFP. I'm 99% done with RFP, which I would like to, it would be brought to Martin and then to council. So we're pretty much ready to go for, if it goes out for RFP this year, and then it takes 10 to 12 months to build, depending on supply. No different than our RFP for our pickup trucks that we purchased this year. We're still waiting for microchips from overseas, not before we see any of that stuff. So it all depends on supply chain and manufacturing. When we might see that truck in the cost is, I have no idea right now. So.
Councillor Roper.
Two things, since we're on capital budgeting, at what point in time would we expect to need a pumper truck? Or not a pumper truck, sorry, an aerial one. Like, I know we use Lacombs for when we need to. At what point will we as a municipality be needing to look at?
Usually that stressor is when you start getting into the multi-story buildings, the big box stores. So we've got 1 3-story apartment block. If we were to get, like Microtel is another high rise, we'll call it a high rise. But multi-story facilities right now, we only carry ladders on the truck, 1 ladder, and it's 35 foot. Right, we're an aerial platform, similar to what the Bronto is in Lacombe, is 110 foot.
Okay, so it's basically a building.
Yeah, and I mean, you could use it for like some of the newer homes being built up in Vista Heights and that, where they're multi-level and you've got walkouts, so a 3-story residential home, but you still got to be able to get that unit in, and the roads aren't that wide, so that would be your first unit out, and then an engine. Okay. Right.
Secondly, we had 35 alarm calls.
Yes.
Were all of them false, or some of them actual?
So your alarm calls are alarm calls. So out of the alarm calls, you're looking at 3 of them are carbon monoxide, so they're legitimate alarm calls. So when we call, say, false alarms, they're really not a false alarm because the detector worked. Okay, it did its job. So it's a non-emergent event, right? It's non-emergency. Equipment malfunctions, we're sitting at 6 of them. So whether it's batteries or someone didn't know how to clean it properly. Cooking incidents, 17 out of that 35. Right, so I burnt popcorn, I burnt my supper, frozen pizzas are a big one. Regular maintenance, 3 of them. We have issues with security codes and steam. So that gives you an idea. I don't know how well you can see that up there, but that's all on that pie chart that I can send to council.
Thank you.
Councillor Pell.
Thank you. So if someone does trip their alarm
Yeah.
via a non-emergent, so say popcorn, what is the best course of that? Is there something they can do to help stop that before you guys are already sending out vehicles, or is it pretty?
So unfortunately, the way monitoring companies work with the alarm systems, as soon as that device goes off, it sends an alert to the alarm monitoring company, and it automatically triggers us. So it goes from, say from your console to 911, right to us. It's automatic.
So it's not like when they type in, I don't have a monitor.
No,
so I don't.
no. So
So it's not like when it's typed
entering
in and
this
they
and then
call
say-
you and no, when it's fire.
It's pretty much automatic. And then the monitoring company will try to get a hold of you to confirm. By that time, I've already got 30 members responding, right? So some of these calls where the other spreadsheet will show no, this one actually does give you an idea. Response time. So on this one here, this is, so 28 of those calls, we were canceled. So
28
no
to 35.
Out of 20, yeah, out of 35, right? So we've been thinking of how do we recoup our costs? So do I charge you, send you an invoice, or do I charge the monitoring company? Well, we've been reading some of these contracts that everybody signs, and in fine print, you're on the hook. Right? So on average, one truck, just in labor, is $360 that we pay out to the members, if I only get 6 guys. But being a volunteer department, I don't know how many people I have coming or going, right? So I could have 18 guys. So is it a monitoring issue? Because it's automatic and they're not getting back. And also with our alarm permit system, that information that's gathered on there, if that information is incorrect for the monitoring company, so if you change your cell phone number or maybe someone else changed the relationship and someone else or whatever, if that information's not correct, we're still responding, right?
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming out this evening, and please extend our gratitude to all the fire department. We appreciate all their hard work and time that they put into our community.
I'll pass that on to them this night.
Thank you so much. Our next item of business is 6.2, the request for direction, council remuneration compensation. CEO Thompson.
Thank you. So, as council is aware, we do have the council remuneration review committee work underway, and we have a second meeting this week. The reason that we bring this policy forward tonight is just to give the committee an opportunity to review those aspects of the community other than compensation and things like that. And so it's before the committee tonight, along with the existing policy. New policy, there's not a bunch of changes in it. You'll see under the procedure that, I'm just going to go to here, I'm sorry. Under the procedure, we speak about comparator municipalities. One time we did have the financial indicator data that was available to us. That's been changed, as council is aware, to the Alberta Municipal Affairs Municipal Measurement Index. And so through discussion last year at budget time, we pick a range between plus and minus 10 of that municipal measurement index. We have a range of comparators, I think it's 13 municipalities. And then go around, we had data provided by 12, so the uptake was really good on that. And information that's gained through the wage salary survey and the council remuneration survey is shared with all those other municipalities, so it's very valuable information for them as well. Further on, we just did a little bit of cleanup on the wording. We did also add that under travel and subsistence, we added a few other subsections in there. We did indicate that the mayor is responsible for approving councilors' expense claims, which we know is happening currently, just within the previous policy. And the fact that the mayor and councilor to submit the receipts for meals and instances where meals are provided at a conference, seminar, workshop, or meeting, the meal allowance or receipted meals will not be reimbursed unless approved by council. So I think that's information that council is already aware. And also that the deputy mayor approves the mayor's expense claim. So we've added that. And we've also added that the administration vehicle is provided for councilors' use if it's not an overnight trip. I think council's always been aware of that, but we've also placed that in here and that it's booked out by calling the reception desk and booking it. We've also added a section on professional development, and we just make identify that policy 155.21, elected official development opportunity, which we're going to talk about next, is in place in relation to professional development. And we also identify that under electronic devices and internet connection reimbursement, that electronic device and software is provided for each council member for their 4-year term. So largely just some minor additions. We just thought it would be good to bring that forward at this time. If there's any further request by council for any, or by the committee for any changes in this policy. And then the plan will be once the council remuneration review committee is done its work, they will come before council to present their findings and get approval from council, and that'll be in place for the next term. So therefore, recommendation that we're seeking tonight is simply that standing committee provides any input and direction in the updating of the council remuneration compensation policy 156.21.
We'll open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Stendy?
So I know that the next item is going to have probably quite a few questions on it. I'm just wondering if this item being first is maybe putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because this one is asking us to, in a way, agree with or approve the next item. And I'm not sure that any member of council is necessarily prepared to do that without having a conversation first. I don't know, maybe I'm just reading it differently, but I felt reading this that this should have maybe come after the next item, just because it included in here that this was.
Well, the only, just on one section, we do have professional development. We just make reference to the next policy. So no matter what, even if there's significant changes to that policy, it will still be identified in here. And so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Kell?
Thank you. I had 2 questions. So item 7.2 in regards to what you just mentioned, the reimbursement for the internet connection. Are we then, will this document not have a number in it and that will only be discussed at budget time?
For honorariums?
No, for the high-speed internet connection reimbursement?
That's right. Yeah. So the committee is looking at all those various aspects.
Okay. Well, just because I noticed there was spaces for other numbers to be input, but not that one specifically.
Even that table at the end should just.
Okay. And then my second question is in regards to item 9.2. The honorarium and per diem claims shall be submitted on a form provided by the Director of Corporate Services and submitted no later than 2 days prior to the pay date. We've actually adjusted that timeline, and we've been submitting them by, I believe it's the third Thursday of
Okay,
the month, which I'll have to get someone to double check, but I believe that that's what it's been adjusted to, so I think that should be reflected in here.
thank you.
No problem.
Mayor Poole?
My understanding was the third weekend, so maybe see if
Oh, maybe it's
council
the
could
third
just go
weekend,
through
But we'll double check.
with payroll and find out.
It used to be in our calendars, and I tried flipping through my calendar, but I couldn't find it.
Does anybody else have any questions? Not seeing any, would anybody like to entertain a motion? Mayor Poole?
Just getting back to the. I move that standing committee of council provide input and direction in updating of the council remuneration compensation policy 15621. Would you like me to rephrase that in any that we have done that? And we're recommending that this be put forward to the council meeting?
Yeah,
Or is this okay the way it is?
yeah, I think the recommendation that this policy be brought forward to council in an upcoming meeting with the information provided by the Remuneration Committee with the adjustments as noted.
So that's the addition?
Yes.
Can be brought forward to a future council meeting?
Yes.
Is there any debate on the motion? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And I just need to back up to 6.1. We need a motion to accept for information, I believe. Councillor Stendy,
So moved.
any debate on that motion? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. On to 6.3, the request for direction, elected officials development opportunities policy.
Thank you. So this is a rewrite. The elected official professional development policy is utilized to outline parameters for council to attend professional development sessions, which in turn support their role. Administration recognizes elected officials benefit from training and development opportunities which enable them to perform their governance role and keep informed on current and emerging local government issues. The previous elected official development opportunities policy has not been updated since 2008. Therefore, new policy has been drafted for review of the Standing Committee of Council. Notable changes to the procedure include outlining how a common or mandatory professional development opportunity will be expensed, when a per diem it will be issued, and what's funded in the elected official professional development budget, including travel, subsistence, course materials, etc. Another addition to the policy is a scoring guide, which can be used to guide and determine the value of professional development opportunities that may not be in the scope of those that are normally attended, and then we can review that as we move forward. Also consideration that deserves discussion would be if the budget allotment for the per diems provided for each council member should be put back in place with a single general fund instead of per diems assigned to each council member, so that's something we could also discuss. Financial implications: currently the mayor has an annual budget of $9,800 for professional development opportunities, and council members have an annual budget of $5,200. These amounts are subject to adjustments based on annual operating budget deliberations. So going through the policy, we put it into our standardized template, which has the policy at the front end, followed by the procedure. And so going to the procedure, we have a preamble in there. The purpose of the elected official development opportunity policy is to encourage and support participation and attendance of council at conventions, conferences, seminars, courses, and other professional development training during their tenure. We've also got a section on training and development, and subsection 2.2 outlines that the town of Blackfalds recognizes that certain conventions must be available for all of council to attend, including the annual AUMA, or Alberta Urban Municipalities Association. While at some conventions, the town need only be represented by a few council members, including the annual Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. Then we have a section on the budget. It talks about budget amounts for annual professional development opportunities, including subject to annual operating budget deliberations. The professional development budget also includes travel and subsistence costs. The fact that costs for spouses and partners to accompany council members are not funded. The council professional development budget amounts may be reallocated from one council member to another, so we have that in place, I think, for, I guess, from the previous term. And that there is courses that are mandatory for newly elected councillors to take upon election, and those are expensed through a separate cost center and not come out of the prescribed budget for each council member. We've also put in under 3.7 the travel and subsistence costs for council members assigned to external boards and committees that meet on a regular basis will be considered during budget deliberations and as an additional budget requirement. So we have some external boards and committees that meet monthly. And in some cases, there's travel involved, so that can add up specifically. So we put this in here so that those are identified at budget time and included in the discussions. And also, the last subsection is council members will be responsible for all expenses unrelated to approved professional development requests. The per diems, that section is pretty well left as it was previously. You'll note that we left it blank for the rates, subject to the work that the committee is doing. Under approvals, a fair amount of changes here. Council members attendance at conferences, conventions, workshops, seminars, courses, meetings that are required as part of council responsibility or as a member of committee boards will not require approval. Requests for participation in conventions, conferences, seminars, courses, and other professional development training other than those offered through AUMA or FCM or Associate Planning Board Committee or agency aligned with the municipality will require approval of council. I think we all realize that, especially with the course of this past year, there's a lot of courses that are offered, a lot more than it used to be available, and many courses. So there's a lot more opportunities for those types of things, and I know that there's been questions asked over the course of the year, whether those are covered. So I think having this in here is probably good. Professional development scoring sheet, which is a appendice A, may be utilized to assist in determining the value of those professional development opportunities outside the scope of those normally intended. Elected officials will reference in their written submissions how their professional development training addresses points in the professional development rubric. Estimated costs for conventions, conferences, seminars, courses, and training, as well as additional materials such as textbook must be included in the request. No approvals are required for conventions, conferences, things like that, where there is no cost. And is at the discretion of the mayor. Annual conferences, all members of council may attend the AUMA. AUMA conference attendance, travel, subsistence costs will be funded from each elected official's professional development budget. The mayor and up to 3 councillors may attend the annual Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. This is similar to what we have now. Cost for attendance at annual FCM budget, travel, and subsistence is funded through a separate budget cost center and not from each elected official's professional development budget. And that's status quo with what we've had in place. Under registration, the executive assistant may register council members for courses and conferences as requested. Receipts must be provided to accounts payable for processing, or the council may register themselves. And then under reporting, that council will update the rest of council member will update the rest of council during roundtable discussions at the second regular council meeting each month. So other than that, included in there was that rubric, and it's just a guiding template. I don't know what anybody thought of it, but I thought when we included it, it would be kind of good for those conferences that are kind of a question mark, and allows you to go down and score those, and that way it makes it a little easier in the decision making whether or not conference, seminar, or workshop or anything like that is worthwhile to you as a council member. Any questions? I imagine there is.
Anybody have any questions? Councillor Taylor?
So at one time, we had a discussion as a council, this goes back a while back, because there would be a golf tournament and it would be for political reasons. So maybe it would be whatever party was having a golf tournament, and the ruling that we had back then was this: if it was political, if it was to do with the party or something, not necessarily for the municipality, you could go to it, but it would be on your dime. Would that be reflected in this? Because is that consistent with what you have proposed?
That's not reflected in the policy, something like that. We're looking at direction from council.
Mayor Poole?
So in response to that, I believe that we have a document, possibly a procedural bylaw, I'm not sure, or there is a directive from the government of Alberta that we are not allowed to utilize our personal funds for any political, for anything that includes political support. So I'm trying to remember which document it came out of, but there is a provincial document that prohibits us from doing that.
Okay, double check my version.
Councillor Taylor?
I want to thank the mayor for that. That is, we received that, and there was actually some reports, this goes back a few terms now, that people actually, the government investigated and people had to pay back, and there was quite a lot that happened. So that's why I bring it up, because this happened. We weren't involved, but other municipalities were investigated, and certain councillors had to pay back the municipality and pay for things. So, and I know it was a directive from the government.
That's not this council, right?
No.
Councillor Pell?
Thank you. So item 4.3 in regards to per diems for supplemental education courses. The course that it lists here specifically is the Municipal Elected Leaders Certificate. Now, by the name of that course, it seems it would be quite relevant specifically to municipal elected officials. So I'm just curious as to why that course would be called out during this specifically, as opposed to a like a third-party event or a different event. And the only reason I'm saying that is because it is quite a comprehensive course, and Councillor Schwab and I both took that course, and we were able to easily fit it into our budgets by taking it over the span of 2 years. So we took it like a school year, we did it in the fall and then again in the spring. So I guess that's my question, is one, why would that particular certificate be called out? Because it does seem like that would be an item that would fit very easily under 5.2 to get an approval from council.
Yeah, this one here, this wasn't supposed to be, this year it was supposed to be the U of A course for municipal administration. So that's a technical, so my apologies.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. My next item is just also under 5.2 approvals. So it's saying, from what it reads, it sounds like anything that requires cost other than AUMA or FCM will require approval of council. Now this year we saw a number of webinars that were offered online, sometimes with only a few days notice before they were being offered, with ticket prices at under $35 or $50. Should there maybe not be a minimum limit to require that to come forward to council? I'm just thinking, if Alberta Councils offers a webinar that is relevant to us with a $35 ticket, do we really have to get that approved each time? That seems like it would.
So first of all, I just want to clarify that this would be any course from AUMA or FCM. I know what you're talking about isn't through AUMA or FCM, but I just wanted to clarify. It's just not for conventions, it's anything we put on. Yeah, you're right. I know there is some items that are quite minimal in cost and even quite valuable. Again, that's why we bring the policy to the standing committee is for this input.
Mhm.
And, that could be an option that we could look at is minimal charge. I mean,
If it's less than
council know that they have a
$75.
set budget and to weigh that out and determine. But I think part of the problem in the past has been, in a lot of cases, a lot of the per diem is used up. And in the latter part of the year, then all of a sudden, there's courses and things come out that are of interest, and then you find that you're short on them. So, we look at any recommendation that the committee would like to see. We can also bring this back. I mean, this is a major change. So we did our best to put something together that kind of made sense of the starting point.
Absolutely. If it were the will of council, I would love to see some sort of minimum ticket allowance included in there. It just feels like that's going to be a lot of extra emails back and forth without,
Especially in a lot of cases where there's only 2 or 3 days notice to try and get that approved.
which often happens. And, well, I know I was, I don't know how many other people were, but I had a spreadsheet going with how often, and we get our quarterly reports as well saying where we're at. So I don't know that there's specifically any reason for anyone to go over.
Mayor Poole?
So through the chair to Councillor Appel, when you took the courses, were you also submitting for per diems for the amount of time you took the course?
I was, because I was not going to work those days.
Okay.
And to be fair, it was a total of 8 days. I'm trying to remember. 7 or 8 days. So it was once a month. It wasn't, it wasn't a 3-week solid course.
Councillor Taylor?
Through the chair to Councillor Appel, we did have on council, one councillor that went to some courses, and it was questioned sometimes what were the benefits for a municipality. And I think that's, if it shows it's been, I won't say who it was, but it was back. But that's why that came up is that, if you can show, the biggest thing is to show that how's it benefiting your municipality. But sometimes some things out there weren't, and it was happening, like there would be a course on, I don't even want to say what they went to, but it raised it amongst council. They said, well, how is that benefiting? And as long as it's benefiting, I think it's a good thing. And I think if there was some kind of defining way of defining that is benefiting your municipality, like if it's relating to economic development or the board you're on or whatever, I think that's good. But sometimes they weren't relating, I don't think, to anything in our municipality, and that's where it became needed to have that.
I know at our council, it's all come up in roundtable discussion when we've done the extra courses, which has been great because we've all learned from each other and what they've gotten for ideas from them. So,
And just further to that, it was in regards to that one specific course, and that was one of the things that I think is great is that it was brought forward to council before we attended and discussed and voted upon. So that's all I'm saying is that it should fall under 5.2 where it gets the approval of council, 100%.
Councillor Stanley?
So, through the chair, to CEO Thompson, you said that this rubric is just a guide, but before that you read off a section that said that the rubric needs to be attached to a written submission, which would then be approved, but it didn't say, where I might have missed, where it said who would be approving that. Would it be all of council? Because historically, if somebody wants to attend something that maybe hasn't been attended before or is something new, they bring it to a council meeting or they email all of council, explain what it is, give information, and all of council has the opportunity to have input into whether or not they feel it's relevant. And it also alerts the rest of council in case they are also interested in attending the same event. So I'm just curious who this approval would go through.
I guess how I see it working through the rubric would be if you were wanting to attend a course, you go through there and do the scoring, and then bring it forward to council at some point in time. Here, you reference how professional development addresses how your professional development would benefit by that, and then with the scoring that you did. It wouldn't be council that scored, you'd score yourself and say, I went through this, it scored 15 out of 20, this is what I see the benefits are, I'd like to attend. So I think that's more or less what happens now, except we don't have that guiding table to assign a score to it.
Okay, because just subsequent, there is a section that talks about the mayor being able to give bonus points.
That was supposed to not be in there,
Okay,
so my apologies.
It's at the bottom of the river.
Because the reason I want to leave that out, because it'd be very hard to come up with the discretion. Although we did point out in here that there is some things in there, such as inclusion and team building, that might work that, but when we first looked at this, our intention was not to have that section in there, unless council didn't want it to remain.
And then Councillor Pell.
I have a few. Thank you. So in under item 5.6, the last sentence, reimbursement for travel and subsistence costs for free professional development training is at the discretion of the mayor. My question is why that would be at the discretion of the mayor and not at the discretion of council as per the other items? Like as per 5.2.
Well, we can make it consistent, either have the mayor approve or council as a entity that approves as well, so we can change that if that's the desire of the committee.
I just think it would be more consistent. Thanks. Item 6.3 in regards to the FCM conference. Is our current rule for the mayor and up to 3 councillors? I thought it was only 2.
No, 3.
Okay, so its wording is up to 3, however, typically it's the mayor and 2.
It's been just 2.
We've only done 2 for the past 4 years.
I guess I would use enough fingers on the ring. Sorry. I actually did have 2, and I changed it to 3, so.
Councillor Sandy.
so just on that note, I actually had a note about that as well, that in 2020, we did make an exception because it was a virtual meeting. So we opened it up to all of council because of the reduced cost, but typically it's 2. And then in regards to 3.1.2, it says that council must report on professional development activities during the roundtable discussion at the Town of Blackfalds regular council meeting. I feel as though now that council does monthly reporting, which are public, which are online and attached to our agendas, that this item could maybe be struck. It's a little bit redundant. I feel that we already fill out our council reports, or even if we just changed it to we'll fill out their monthly council
Included in
reports.
the report, yeah. Okay.
Fearful.
So there are times when FCM is in Edmonton or Calgary, or there are events that are very relevant being put on by organizations that are really relevant to council. This does not accommodate those types of events where we have sent all of council to FCM in Calgary, for example, and it was really well received, and it was an opportunity. How would we take advantage of that type of opportunity under this policy?
I think we'll just add another subsection in there in situations where council deems it to be an advantage to, or those conferences within close proximity. We can word something in there. I agree. I think that was the case in the past, and so it should be included in here.
At the beginning of your presentation, you alluded to the fact that it might be more efficient to have a generalized pot, and that hasn't been explored by yourself. Could you
Well, we
elaborate on
did
that?
have a generalized amount of funds for all of council, and then, gosh, it was 5, 6 years ago, we made that change to an amount per council member. I just mentioned that if it makes it easier, if we revert back to that, we can still track those costs and report it back to where everybody is. Or we can leave it as it is if that's its council as well. I just wanted to bring that as an option.
So from my memory, when we did that, it was to allow each councillor to be very aware of the amount that they are spending. But it was also in relation to the fact that if Councillor Z was coming close to their amount, then they could easily reach out and talk to council. We could ask for administration to bring back an amount that was available. And if it was a valuable conference or committee conference for them to attend, then it could still be borrowed from X to allow Z to go. Would that still be allowed under this
Oh,
policy?
definitely, I mean, that's worked well, I think, and, if it's not broken, we'll fix it.
Counselor Pell?
Thank you. So in regards to the rubric, sorry, I was going down the document with my notes. The very first point, years left in office. I'm wondering, I understand where that's coming from discussions that have come forward from late. However, I'm wondering exactly how relevant that is, because there are a lot of things that could affect someone's time on council other than a municipal election. So nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow or on the drive home this evening, or if a surprise election could be called. I don't know if that's ever happened in Blackfalds, but it's nothing saying it couldn't happen. So I particularly have an issue with that point, especially considering we don't know what's going to happen on election night, whether or not any of that is relevant. So I think that line being on there absolutely discourages education of any kind. If someone were to move away, or if someone had an illness, would they be scored less to take that course than someone who doesn't? I have a real problem with that point on there, and if that were to stay on there, I know that I won't be voting in favor of this policy.
Yeah, we can definitely have a look at it. So just for my own use, generally is the committee in favor of this table, utilizing this table?
Would you like a vote?
I guess I'm just a first draw vote, because I mean, it's something new, and I knew it's something that would quite likely garner a fair amount of discussion. I think it's good. I mean, it's not perfect. We can work on it, but there's something the council's not in favor of.
Could I suggest an alternative?
Mhm.
So what if there were just a form for the counselor to fill out, or even a set of specific questions that then they could type out in an email or just type out to be read, that were to answer, what relevance do you see this being to the community? What will be your cost, including whatever, a form that they were to fill out, and then everyone on council were able to make their own
Instead of a scoring.
rubric. That would be my suggestion.
I like that. Mayor Poole?
Just for the viewers, there is no way that an election can be called other than every 4 years in municipal politics.
Thank you for the clarification.
Counselor Taylor?
Just a question, unless it's a by-election.
Individual, one.
One, yeah.
Okay, so what I got from the discussion, we're going to put together a form and bring it back the next time we come back with some of the same data without a score on there for council to deliberate and determine.
That sounds great. Anybody else have any questions at all, or is anybody ready to make a motion? Counselor Stanley?
I'm prepared to hand this back to administration for the changes asked by the committee today to bring forward at a future standing committee meeting.
Is there any debate on that motion? All those in favor? That's carried unanimously.
Thank you.
6.4, request for direction, development fees and fines bylaw.
Thank you, Council Worship. So tonight I'm going to introduce Liz Bullock. She is our intern, Municipal Affairs intern planner. So as part of her internship, she needs to provide some presentation experience. And so with that, she's done the development fees and fines bylaw update to go over from our development officer too. So she'll present it and then we'll open up to questions.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Nice to be here with you in person this evening. So the current fees and fines schedule is included as Schedule D in the current land use bylaw and was adopted in 2010 and has since been amended many times. With the rewrite of the land use bylaw coming forward, there's been a need to review and update the schedule to ensure the town's fees reflect appropriate administrative costs to carry out business and to match fees with surrounding municipalities as best as possible. In review of the land use bylaw, it was recommended and confirmed by legal that the fees and fines section be taken out of the current land use bylaw and included separately as its own bylaw for ease of review and amendments. Upon a thorough review of the current fees and fines schedule, several changes and new additions have been included for consideration. The draft development fees and fines bylaw has been sent to legal for review with the priority placed on the penalties section. As such, the Planning and Development Department is bringing forward the rates as included in the attached schedules for review and comment prior to council. Part of the attachments are the bylaw schedules that will make up the fees and fines bylaw after it is finalized and brought forward for council's consideration. The draft bylaw is divided into 4 separate schedules. Schedule A outlines the miscellaneous fees, development permit application fees, and fees for plans, statutory documents, and subdivisions. Schedule B outlines the building permit fees. Schedule C outlines safety codes fees for electrical, plumbing, gas, private sewage, other fees, and refund and cancellation fees, which are set up by IJD, the town's inspection company. And finally, Schedule D outlines offenses and penalties. In addition, a reference spreadsheet was provided outlining development fees with a comparison to similar and surrounding municipalities as part of the justification in the fees review process. Subsequent to the Standing Committee of Council's approval, both the draft development fees and fines bylaw and the draft land use bylaw will be presented to Council after the legal review is completed. It is our recommendation that the Standing Committee of Council provides input and direction in the updating of the draft development fees and fines bylaw schedules as presented, and that will form the new bylaw 1261.21. With that, my report is complete, and I will open it up for questions that either myself or Director Waring will answer.
Councillor Stinty?
So under offenses and penalties, section 5, 5.11.5, and underneath that 5.9, please tell me that those two fines have mistakenly been switched. Because I'm seeing failure to remove a garage sale sign, first offense at $250, and a first offense to remove an election sign at $100. I'm really hoping that those were mixed up, because I don't see how we could possibly, as a municipality, hold our residents to a higher standard than we would hold elected officials or candidates to.
Okay, yes, that is correct. We can switch those again after legal has sent their review as well.
Okay, so it was a whoops, they're just mixed up. Oh, thank you.
Councillor Pell?
Thank you. This one's not a comment, it's just I found a typo.
Okay.
At the bottom of Schedule C, the electrical contractors only, at over 500,000, it should be 3,265. It's just a period instead of a comma.
Okay. And sorry, what section was that?
Section C, electrical contractors only,
Okay.
at the bottom of page 4.
Perfect.
Councillor Taylor?
So under the plan, statutory documents and subdivision fees, there are a few changes that are proposed in here. Has any of this information been sent out to our developers for their comments?
No, it hasn't yet, Councillor Taylor. We looked at similar municipalities as per that spreadsheet. We're recommending those costs to help partially support our cost for doing that service. So we're a little bit more in alignment with what other municipalities are doing right now after not looking at this bylaw for 10 years.
Continue.
So when you looked at other municipalities, you should tell me which municipalities you compared to.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor. So in that spreadsheet that we attached, I believe it was Macomb, Red Deer, Wetaskiwin, Rocky Mountain House, Innisfail, Penhold, Pinoka, Granby, Statler, and Sylvan Lake. And I guess further to that, if you guys feel like there's some development fees that you want to have reduced or changed, I mean, we definitely want to hear those thoughts.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I did have one other question. In the Schedule D, the offenses and penalties, I didn't see anything in there in regards to unsightly yards or unsightly vacant lots.
That's also under a different bylaw. That's under community standards bylaw.
Okay.
So that's where those fees would remain, or those fines would remain.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Does anybody wish to entertain a motion at this time? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I recommend that Standing Committee of Council provide input and direction in updating and development of the draft development fees and fines bylaw schedule as presented with amendments, and that will form part of the new bylaw 1261.21.
Any debate on the motion? Your vote?
Just one question. Would this be a bylaw that would include a public hearing?
So through the chair to Mayor Poole, no, it wouldn't require a public hearing, although the bylaw, like the land use bylaw will be coming forward and that will require a public hearing. But yes, no, I don't think that the rates need a public hearing. If there was something specific that we wanted to go back to the developers and talk to about, we definitely could do that.
I think you partially answered my next subsequent question. Do you intend to provide this information to our developers and builders before you bring it back to council another time in order that they could provide their feedback to yourself?
We weren't planning on it. However, they're coming forward, the fees and fines portion of this bylaw along with the land use bylaw will be coming forward at the same meeting. And so we can definitely talk to them about that. But they're going to say, the lower fees, of course, are going to be better for development point of view. That being said, I think we're being very competitive in the local central Alberta community when it comes to what we're proposing tonight.
Thank you.
All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And next up, we have one action correspondence item, 7.1, the Alberta Association of Community Peace Officers Communications Request.
Thank you. So this is a letter from the Association of Community Peace Officers. And this is in relation to the pilot project that was started last year involving CPO sharing RCMP communications specific to the AFRAX radio system. And so I think council is aware that we've been purchasing AFRAX radios over the last few years for the peace officers and fire department. This project that was in place with a few municipalities was a pilot. And so they're hoping to move ahead with that on a permanent basis and expand the number of municipalities, including yourself, because there's a lot of benefits by sharing that frequency of the AFRAX radios. However, you'll see by this letter that the RCMP want to put a hold on it because some staff shortage in informatics department. So this letter is being sent to municipalities to see if council administration would be willing to help them with the issue, and write a letter to the government to see if we can have this move forward and support it going forward.
Mayor Poole?
Do you have any background information as to how big the task force was and the cost of that? They were saying that they can't continue because of lack of staffing. So if they don't have staff and they can't obtain staff because of not being able to find new members, then will this type of letter be beneficial?
Well, I don't think it's a lack of members. It's some shortage with the RCMP and their informatics to support the AFRAX radio sharing. And I don't know the details of what the shortage is in the amount of people or funding, but it sounds like it's short term. We don't know how long that would be, but they're looking for support of the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association and the Justice Minister to have this program continue. It would be a shame to have it start and see the benefits of it and not have it continue. We were not one of the pilot communities.
Councillor Stanley?
So he isn't here tonight, and I'm not sure if you've had those conversations or if this is something that would need to happen and then come back to council. But is Manager Morrison aware of this, and what were his thoughts on it?
I did speak to him about it. He really didn't know any more information than what I shared with council. He didn't have the details of what the shortage was or the specifics. Just what was in the letter. And he's been a proponent of the AFRAX radio system, and would like us to be able to share that communication on with the RCMP in the future.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Paul?
Thank you. So the AFRAX radios that we have purchased are still being used despite whether or not this program goes forward? Oh,
Yes.
excellent. Just wanted to check.
Any other? Councillor Stanley?
So just spinning off of Mayor Poole's question a little bit, would sending a letter to AUMA and perhaps to K Division take an exponential amount of time, or staff involvement, or would it be a relatively easy task and something that, whether it was something that actually helped at the end of the day or not, it wouldn't be a detriment should we do it?
Oh, definitely. Manager Morrison and I could draft a letter that gets across the key areas of concern and does it in a good manner and forward it off. And I think anything would help.
Mayor Poole?
Through the chair to Councillor Stanley, just to be clear, I was not talking about our existing staff. I was talking about staff that they were referring to in provincially when they were not able to do it. So
I understood, thank you.
okay, I thought you might have misunderstood where I was going. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Mayor Poole?
I'm prepared to move that council direct administration to send letter to the Justice Minister, the rural municipalities of Alberta, and the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association to support the project and the request from the RCMP.
Is there any debate on the motion? All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 8.1, number information items, the Center Plaza update.
Thank you. So we haven't spoken about the Center Plaza update for a while. Last time we spoke, I think we talked a little bit about the pre-construction estimate and possibly going out for a request for proposal. We have been spending a considerable amount of time looking at options on this. We've been looking at refinement of the site development that would include other finishes to possibly reduce the cost. We went out for a sponsorship. We sent out sponsorship packages to, I believe it was about 18 major companies in the area that we do business with. There hasn't been a great uptake on that, and we're a little disappointed, although they've only been out for about a month. So, and that sponsorship is a bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, so from $10,000 up to $100,000. So, and in that package, for each of those sponsorship levels, they would receive something to identify the fact that they were a sponsor to the plaza. So we've got that out there. We made application for 2 grants. One is the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, and the other is the Alberta Community Facility Enhancement Program. So we're waiting on notification of those 2, so our fingers are crossed that we get some funding there. Also, we know that with the busyness of the trades right now, if we were to go for tender, quite likely it's not going to be constructed this summer. So everybody's super busy, and their work is booked up. Also, there's an extensive amount of activity down there right now, so adding the plaza would just further complicate things. So we've taken the position that we're better off if this is to go ahead to do it in the spring. That way we can ensure that the alignment with the parking area, with the entrance to the facility, all aligns with elevations and things like that, and that we don't have any problems that way. One concern has always been with the lift station and a generator building, those 2 metal buildings. They're not pretty buildings. I think the council will agree on that. We've had a significant amount of discussion over the last while. We've elected to have them painted to match the color of the facility, and so that will be done. And we're also looking at methods of screening. We know both the west side and the south side of those buildings need to be fenced, need to be secured so people can't get in there. So we're looking at that, and that'll be done no matter what, if the plaza goes ahead or not. And then we're also looking at fencing between the 2 buildings so people can't get in and hide behind the side. And then we'll look at landscaping that can be done without any throwaway costs on the south and west side with some trees. So we are looking at that landscaping. We'll talk to our internal horticulturist to assist us with that. The pedestrian walkway will come from the rail line and come down and tie into the entrance to the Eagle Builder Center, so that will proceed. And that's going to be done without any throwaway costs if and when the plaza does go ahead as well. So once we've achieved funding, and we'll come back to council on that, and we'll be in a position to issue a tender, and hopefully we'll know later on this fall or early winter where that project goes. We administration feels that this is will be a great benefit to the community, and so we're putting a lot of effort into it. But I thought it would be good just to provide council a bit of an update of where those things are.
Thank you. Did anybody have? There's Debbie.
Just one question. Thank you for the update. I have passed by that every single day, and I am so grateful. The bump at the end of Womax is finally gone, and my car is in one piece. Aside from that, by waylaying this possibly 6 to 9 months, do you anticipate any additional cost for council?
I don't think so. If we were to go for tender right now, we would have high costs, because you would have bidders saying, well, I'm going to put in a high bid, then I'll chance it again. So I think we'll get a lot better pricing putting out in the winter. That's what we've done with a lot of our projects, and we've reaped the benefits of doing that. So we're far better off that way. And we do have some other concepts that we want to bring forward to council. Even the last concept the council seen, we did refine that. So we're always kind of working with that. There's lots of concerns, not only for safety, but for durability, even for skateboarders, for instance, right? You've got all those concrete sections. We don't want to be an attraction for that type of activity. So we want to make sure that we put a lot of effort into the planning, that long-term, the project will be of benefit for the community for many years.
Any other comments? Okay, moving on to 8.2 of our information, the interim police advisory quarterly report.
This is just simply an information item we received Thursday, I think. Yeah, it was Thursday. So we just put it here for standing committee's review. It's the interim advisory board that's been put in place. There'll be a more permanent board that will be created, and the information that's provided here talks about the next steps in the implementation of that. So fair amount of reading there, there's 60 pages, so I'm not going to even pretend to know the content of everything that's in there, but it is there for the committee's review, and if you have any questions, then you can reach out to me, and myself and Manager Morrison will respond accordingly.
Thank you. I just need a motion for the information items. Councillor Wolford.
I'll move to accept information items as information.
Any debate on the motion? All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. We have no roundtable discussion, no adoption of minutes, no list of motion, no business for the good of council, no confidential tonight. So that brings our meeting to a close. The meeting is adjourned at 8:17. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for the call.
Yeah.
I was thinking council's.